Okay, I want you to just, for a second, put yourself in a very specific headspace.
Hmm.
You're in your car. It's, I don't know, a gray Tuesday in November. You're on US Route 90, maybe somewhere outside of Houston. Maybe you're just crossing into the swamps of Louisiana.
Right, that kind of nondescript American highway.
Exactly. And the wipers are going, slapping back and forth. You've got semi-trucks just blowing past you at 75 miles an hour, kicking up all that dirty, oily road spray that just coats your windshield.
It is loud. It's industrial.
It's aggressive, honestly.
It's the soundscape of American commerce, really. It's
Sure.
that go, go, go mentality made manifest in, asphalt and diesel.
Yes, it is the very last place on Earth you would ever expect to find peace. It's the last place you'd expect to find any kind of beauty.
Mm-hmm.
But then you look over at the shoulder of the road, and through the rain, you see this jarring flash of color, saffron orange.
And it's not construction vest orange. It's a totally different hue.
No, it's robe orange, and it just creates this cognitive dissonance. You see it, and your brain just kind of stutters for a second.
It does. It absolutely does. You can't process it at first.
Right. You think, what is happening? And as you get a little closer, you realize it's not just one person. It's a line of people. 19 men.
Shaved heads.
Shaved heads, no rain gear, no fancy hiking boots, no high-tech moisture-wicking fabrics, none of that. Just traditional robes and sandals. Walking single file, literally inches away from 18-wheelers barreling down the highway.
And they aren't alone.
No, that's the best part. Trotting right there beside them, looking like he is having the absolute time of his life, is a tan and white dog.
That is the image. That's the one that just captivated the internet.
It is.
It's such a glitch in the matrix. You see that, and your brain just goes, wait, what file did I just open? This doesn't belong here.
That glitch is exactly what we're going to be unpacking today, because this isn't really a story about a hike, and it's definitely not a story about fitness. This is the story of the Walk for Peace.
A 2,300-mile endurance test.
An endurance test that went from a small temple in a pretty tough neighborhood in Texas all the way to the steps of the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C.
And I think endurance test might even be putting it lightly. We're talking about a 108-day odyssey.
108 days, and it just ended just a few days ago on February 10th, 2026, with this massive homecoming back in Texas on, of all days, Valentine's Day. But here's the thing that really gets me, and it's why I really wanted to do this deep dive. We live in an attention economy, right? Everyone is screaming for your attention.
Yeah.
Politicians, influencers, brands, they are all shouting. And yet this small group of monks with, no marketing budget, no PR firm, no political super PAC.
And one very, very good dog named Aloka.
And one very good dog. They somehow managed to capture the attention of millions and millions of people.
5.8 million followers across their social media platforms, to be exact, which is just a staggering number.
It's insane. So here's our mission for this deep dive. We want to understand how a quiet, completely non-political act became this viral phenomenon. But we also want to go deeper than just the viral videos.
Right.
We've got a stack of sources here, some great local reporting from the Fort Worth Report and Kira News, some national coverage from PBS, and then some really heavy, fascinating analysis from the Network for Religious and Traditional Peacemakers.
And that last source is going to be really crucial later on.
Yeah.
Because it helps us answer that big what question.
Right.
Why does an organization affiliated with the UN care about a bunch of guys walking down a highway? And we're going to look at how these monks functioned as what experts in the field call faith-based insider mediators.
Insider mediators. It sounds like a spy term or something.
It really does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But it's actually a cornerstone of modern peace building. And we will definitely get into the weeds on that.
I'm looking forward to that. But first, we have to start where they started. Because before they were internet famous, before they were meeting with bishops in giant cathedrals, they were just neighbors in Fort Worth.
That's absolutely right. To understand the finish line in D.C., you have to understand the starting line. And that starting line is in the historic Stop 6 neighborhood of Fort Worth.
Now, for listeners who aren't familiar with Fort Worth, Stop 6 isn't exactly the wealthiest part of town. It's a community with a ton of history, for sure, but also a lot of challenges.
Absolutely. It's faced its share of economic hardship. And right there in the middle of it is the Hong Dao Vipassana Bhavana Center. This temple has been there for over 26 years. It's a real staple of the Vietnamese American community.
So it's not a tourist attraction?
Oh, not at all. It's a working spiritual center, a place of community.
Okay, so take us back to October 2025. The world is Well, the world is what it is. It's noisy, it's angry.
It is. So it's October 26, 2025, the morning of the departure. And if you look at the photo from the Fort Worth report, the atmosphere was surprisingly intimate. It wasn't some big media circus.
Not at all.
You had the Temple's Youth Association, you had members of the Nepalese Buddhist Association, a few local officials who came to wish them well. It felt very neighborhood.
Well, it did, but the motivation behind it was huge. The leader of the walk is a monk named Bhikkhu Panakara, who also goes by Reverend Guian. And reading his interviews, he just seemed very, I don't know, heavy-hearted about the state of the world.
I think that's the perfect way to put it. He was. He looked at the global landscape and described it as receiving so much anger and hatred. And in Buddhist philosophy, that's not just an emotional state, it's a karmic cycle.
Explain that a little.
Well, the idea is that energy is reciprocal. He felt that because we collectively, as a global society, are putting out so much anger, so much vitriol, it's just bouncing back to us in the form of suffering, division, conflict, stress.
And he mentioned the political division here in the U.S. specifically, right?
Yeah.
The post-pandemic stress, the economic struggles. He saw a nation that was just tired.
Weary. That's the word that keeps coming to mind when I read about this. But here's the distinction that I think is so crucial, and we really need to nail this down right at the top. He said, and he was very clear, this was explicitly not a protest.
Which is so weird, right? Because 99% of the time when you walk to Washington, D.C., you are walking against something.
Right. You're protesting a war or demanding a law change, or you're there to yell at a politician.
Exactly. You march to shout. That's the standard playbook.
And Reverend Nguyen just completely flipped the script on that. He said, we walk not to protest, but to awaken the peace that already lives within each of us.
Awaken the peace. I mean, it sounds nice on a bumper sticker, but what does that actually mean in practice? What were they doing?
Well, it's based on the core teachings of Gautama Buddha regarding loving kindness, the concept of metta, and of course, nonviolence. The goal, as he framed it, was to encourage people to tend to the garden they can touch.
I love that phrase, tend to the garden they can touch. It's so grounding. It feels manageable.
It is. It's a total rejection of the idea that you, as one person, have to fix the entire world instantly. It says that world peace doesn't start with a treaty at the UN.
Right.
It starts with you being peaceful to your spouse or your neighbor. Then that neighbor is peaceful to their family and their coworkers. It radiates outward. It's a bottom-up theory of change, not a top-down one.
So, okay, they have this mission. They pack their bags, very lightly, I have to assume, because they're monks, and they head south toward Houston to start this huge loop across the American South. And I want to pause here for a second and just talk about the physical reality of this.
I have to.
Because I think when people hear Peace Walk, they picture, a nice stroll on a rail trail with a latte in your hand.
Right, a lovely nature walk.
This was not a nature walk. This was an assault on the body.
It really, really was. The reporting from PBS News was fantastic on this. They reported that the monks never took a single day off. They walked every single day for 108 days, rain or shine, heat or ice.
And here's the kicker that I think most people miss when they see the videos. They often walked barefoot.
Barefoot.
Barefoot on American asphalt. I mean, have you ever just stepped on a piece of gravel in a parking lot? It can ruin your whole day.
It's excruciating. Now, imagine doing that for 20 miles a day, every day. And not just on nice sunny days. We're talking about walking barefoot through ice storms in Virginia, through freezing temperatures.
Why? I mean, I get the spiritual dedication, but isn't that just masochistic? What's the point of the pain?
It's ascetic, and there is a difference. In the Theravada Buddhist tradition, there's a concept called khanti. It translates roughly to patience or forbearance or endurance. It's one of the perfections or paramis that a monk tries to cultivate. And the idea is that if you can maintain a state of loving kindness and inner calm while your feet are freezing, while your soles are bleeding, while the wind is cutting right through your robe, then you have truly mastered your mind. You've uncoupled your happiness from your circumstances.
So the pain isn't the point.
No.
The reaction to the pain is the point.
Exactly. It's a proof of concept. It proves that your inner peace isn't dependent on your external circumstances.
Yeah.
If you only have peace when you're in a 5-star spa, you don't really have peace. You have comfort.
That's a great distinction.
They were demonstrating peace in the total absence of comfort.
There is this incredible quote from a woman named Donna Walker in Alexandria, Virginia. She saw them walking in the freezing cold, and she said, "It makes me feel like I'm invincible. I can't imagine being in the cold," and still persisted with kindness.
And that's the transmission right there.
Right.
She saw their endurance, and it gave her strength. That's the visual sermon. It's more powerful than any words.
But the road wasn't just uncomfortable, it was genuinely dangerous. And we have to stop here and really look at what happened on day 25. Because up until this point, this feels like a nice, inspiring, feel-good story. But on November 19th, reality crashed in. Literally.
Yeah. This is the moment where the Peace Walk met the inherent violence of the American road.
Yeah.
They were near Houston, walking along U.S. Route 90.
And Route 90 is no joke. It's fast traffic, very narrow shoulders. It's hostile territory for a pedestrian.
Absolutely.
And
And a car, a driver, struck one of their escort vehicles. And in the chain reaction of that collision, the escort vehicle became a projectile, and it slammed into the monks who were walking on the shoulder.
we are not talking about scrapes and bruises here. One of the monks, Bhante Damphamasan, took a direct hit, a severe one.
His leg was just crushed. It was a catastrophic injury.
The reports say he was rushed to the hospital, and on December 3rd, after weeks of the doctors trying to save the limb, he had to undergo surgery to amputate his leg.
Let's pause on that for a second. Let the weight of that really sink in.
Yeah.
You start a walk for peace. You are holding no anger in your heart. You're actively trying to put good, peaceful vibes into the universe. And the universe rewards you by taking your leg.
In any other context, literally any other context, the group packs up, they call it off, they sue the driver, they go home.
And no one would have blamed them.
Not a soul.
It would have been the most rational, understandable decision.
Right.
Well, we tried, but it's just too dangerous.
But they didn't stop.
They did not stop.
And
this is where that concept of Khanti, that endurance, really shows its teeth. It's not just a theory anymore.
Right.
Bhante Damphamasan, the man who just lost his leg from his hospital bed, encouraged them to keep going. He stayed in the hospital, he healed for about a week, and then he rejoined them.
Wait, he rejoined the walk itself?
He couldn't walk the miles immediately, obviously, but he rejoined the caravan. He rode in the support vehicle. He refused to let his personal tragedy derail the collective mission. He was still part of it.
Wow. That is the moment this stopped being a walk, and it really became a pilgrimage.
100%. It raised the stakes immensely. It showed everyone watching that they were willing to sacrifice their actual bodies for this message. This wasn't a hobby anymore. This was a calling.
And speaking of the group's composition, we have to talk about the member of the group who, let's be honest, probably drew the most attention on TikTok.
Oh, absolutely.
Because humans love an inspiring story of resilience, but they really love a dog.
They really, really do. We have to talk about Aloka,
The peace dog.
the 4-year-old tan and white rescue dog who walked with them.
Come on. Monks are great, the visuals are powerful, but a monk walking with his rescue dog, that is internet gold. It is a cheat code for viral fame.
It really is. And Aloka became a celebrity in his own right. The sources we looked at mention he has over 1 million followers on Facebook just for his own page. 1 million.
That's amazing.
But what's so fascinating is that Aloka's journey mirrored the journey of the monks in this really eerie, almost poetic way.
How so? What do you mean?
He also got injured. In early January, while they were moving through South Carolina, Aloka developed a pretty severe leg injury of his own that required surgery.
Oh, no. So you have the monk with the amputation, and then the dog has to have leg surgery.
Exactly. It's like the struggle was fractal. It was happening to everyone, human and animal alike.
Yeah.
But Aloka didn't quit either.
Of course not.
He rode in the support vehicle to recover during the day, but every evening he would get out and rejoin the monks to rest with them. He stayed with the Sikhang, with the community.
And that image of the dog, limping but getting back out there, that really seemed to hook people. It made the whole thing feel so human, or I guess mammalian.
It made it accessible. Spiritual discipline can feel really intimidating to people. If you see a monk in a robe, you might think, oh, he's holy, he's different from me, I could never do that.
Sure.
But a dog, everyone understands a dog. A dog limping but keeping up with his friends, that's a story every single person on the planet understands instinctively. It just bridges that cultural gap.
So they push through the injury, they push through the South, they're going through Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and as they go, this social media phenomenon just starts to build and build. You mentioned 5.8 million followers earlier.
Yeah, across TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook, it was a viral explosion.
Why do you think it resonated so hard? My feed is usually just people arguing about politics or doing some dance trend or trying to sell me mushroom coffee. Why did a video of guys walking silently down a highway blow up?
I think the experts from PBS and Kira News really nailed it when they point to the context of a weary America. Just think for a second about the mental load the average American is carrying right now. We are living through a time of intense, exhausting polarization. Every conversation, every holiday dinner feels like a potential minefield. There's economic stress, there's geopolitical stress. The aftermath of the pandemic is still lingering in our social psychology. People are just tired.
And angry.
Yeah.
So angry.
And angry. And then you open your phone, you're doom scrolling, you're just bracing for more bad news. And instead of that, you see a silent video.
Yeah.
Saffron robes moving against a gray sky, a happy dog trotting along. No one is shouting. No one is asking you for money. No one is telling you who to vote for or what to be outraged about.
It's a visual counter-narrative to everything else on the internet.
It provides an almost physiological sense of relief just by watching it. It's like an ASMR video for your soul. It literally lowers your blood pressure.
But people didn't just watch online. They started showing up. They started acting on it. The stories of the supporters are just wild to me. PBS interviewed this one guy, Foey Yang.
From Green Bay, Wisconsin.
From Green Bay. He drove 16 hours. I mean, think about that. 16 hours in a car just to see them for a few minutes on the side of a road? I won't drive 16 minutes for a good taco. What compelled that man?
He told the reporter he wanted to learn, and this is his quote, to let things go, forgive each other quickly. He felt that seeing them in person, seeing that discipline and peace would transmit that value to his kids. He was making a pilgrimage for his family's well-being.
That is some serious dedication. And he wasn't the only one. There was Thuy Dong, who traveled all the way from Delaware down to Alexandria, Virginia. It's like people were treating them as a living shrine. Like, if you can just get close to them, maybe you can catch some of that peace by osmosis.
And the reception they got, particularly in the Deep South, is really telling. You have to remember, they are walking right through the heart of the Bible Belt.
Right. This is not exactly a Buddhist stronghold.
Not at all. And you might expect some friction there, some cultural misunderstanding.
Sure.
And yet, report after report shows Christian churches opening their doors to feed and house these Buddhist monks.
That's a really hopeful detail in all of this.
It's interfaith hospitality in action. And it wasn't about converting anyone. It wasn't a theological debate. It was about recognizing shared human values. The churches saw these men walking for peace. They saw that they were hungry and cold, and they just said, come eat. It bypassed all the dogma and went straight to humanity.
And the police involvement was surprising, too. You know, usually when we see police and marchers on the news, it's not always friendly. You see riot gear.
Right. It's an adversarial posture. But here, you had officers in different towns and counties actively escorting them for safety and giving them these commemorative patches from their departments.
I saw photos of that.
Yeah, Biko Panikar's robes ended up just covered in police patches from all these different departments. It created this powerful visual where authority and this grassroots peace building were literally on the same side.
There was one stop, though, that really gave me chills. Day 55, Selma, Alabama.
The Edmund Pettus Bridge.
The site of Bloody Sunday. I mean, the history there is so heavy, you can feel it just looking at pictures of that bridge.
It's sacred ground in the American story. It's a place of profound violence, but also profound courage.
To see these monks in their saffron robes crossing that specific bridge, it just connects their walk to the entire lineage of the civil rights movement.
It does. It's a reminder that the walk for peace and justice in this country is a long one. It didn't start with them, and it certainly won't end with them. But they are carrying the torch, or I guess the alms bowl in this case, for this generation. It just layers the history of American civil rights struggles with this very modern, very different spiritual movement.
And by the time they hit Raleigh, North Carolina, which was day 91, the reports say thousands of people were gathering. Even in the freezing cold, it was becoming a real movement.
And that momentum is what carried them all the way to the Capitol.
Okay, so let's talk about that arrival. Day 108, it's February 10th, 2026. They finally reach Washington, D.C.
They crossed the Chain Bridge from Virginia into D.C. at around 7 or 8 in the morning. And can you just imagine being a D.C. commuter on that morning? You're stressed out, you're drinking your lukewarm coffee, you're probably late for a meeting on the Hill, and you look over and you see 19 monks and a dog taking over a lane of Wisconsin Avenue.
It must have been absolutely surreal, a total system shock.
For sure. And the reception for them had scaled up massively. They went from these small-town greetings to a packed arena at American University, 3,500 people. That is a rock concert-sized crowd.
And from there, they went to the Washington National Cathedral. Now, for those who don't know, the National Cathedral is kind of the spiritual home of the nation's establishment. It's where state funerals are held. It's where presidents go to pray after they're inaugurated.
It's a very establishment venue. It has a lot of institutional weight. And this is where we need to bring in that analysis
Right.
from the Network for Religious and Traditional Peacemakers.
The insider mediators.
Exactly. Because this event at the cathedral wasn't just a feel-good photo op. This was strategic. This was peace-building in action.
Okay, so I want you to dig into that. What does that term insider mediator actually mean in this context?
So in the world of international relations and peace-building, we talk about different tracks of diplomacy.
Okay.
Track one is the official stuff. It's governments. It's the State Department. It's guys in suits signing treaties in Geneva.
The people you see on CNN.
Exactly. Then you have track two, which is more like influential NGOs, think tanks, academics. But then there's track three. And track three is the grassroots. It's community leaders, religious figures, local influencers.
Okay, so that's where the monks fit in?
That's where they fit in.
Yeah.
And the network argues that you can't have lasting peace with just track one diplomacy. You can have two presidents sign a treaty, but if the people on the ground still hate each other and are still fighting, that treaty is just a piece of paper.
Because a law doesn't stop a neighbor from hating their neighbor.
Precisely. This is where the term insider mediator comes from. An insider mediator is someone who has built-in trust and credibility, what we'd call trust capital, within a specific tribe or community. A Buddhist monk in a saffron robe has an insider status with his community that a UN diplomat in a suit will never, ever have. They speak the language of the heart, not just the language of policy.
So when they walk all the way to D.C., they are essentially carrying all that grassroots trust capital and depositing it into the Bank of National Politics.
That is a fantastic way to put it. By bringing these monks to the National Cathedral to stand side by side with Episcopal Bishop Marianne Boud, the network was effectively linking the grassroots energy of the walk with the institutional power of the mainstream church and, by extension, the state. They act as the connective tissue between the tracks.
And Bishop Booth spoke about being one human family. It seems like they worked really hard to make sure this wasn't framed as just a Buddhist event.
That was both strategic and, I think, spiritually authentic. Bhikkhu Panikkara emphasized over and over that the practice mindfulness, loving kindness, is accessible to everyone. You don't have to be Buddhist to breathe.
Yeah.
You don't have to be Buddhist to be kind.
Right.
If they'd gone there to preach specific Buddhist theology, it might have been a much narrower, smaller event. But because their message was this universal inner peace, it allowed everyone, Christians at the cathedral, secular people, politicians, to project their own desire for peace onto the monks. They became a symbol for everyone's hope.
Then came the climax of the D.C. trip, Day 109, the Lincoln Memorial.
The peace gathering and concluding ceremony.
Just the imagery there. You have the statue of Abraham Lincoln, the man who presided over the most divided, violent moment in American history, looking down on these monks who walked across the country for unity.
It's incredibly poetic. It connects all these different threads of American history.
And Bhikkhu Panikkara gave a speech there, and he shared a mantra, a really simple phrase he wanted everyone to use.
Today is going to be my peaceful day.
Today is going to be my peaceful day. It's so simple. It's almost deceptively simple. Maybe too simple.
I don't think so at all. In behavioral psychology, setting a clear intention like that creates what's called a prime.
A prayer.
Yeah. If you wake up and you say that phrase to yourself, you are priming your brain to look for opportunities for peace rather than opportunities for conflict. You're telling your reticular activating system, that's the part of your brain that filters information, to spot chances to be kind, to de-escalate.
So if someone, say, cuts you off in traffic, instead of your brain's first instinct being, fight him, your brain goes, wait a minute, today is a peaceful day, just let it go.
Exactly. It disrupts that automatic, habitual anger response. It gives you that half second of space to make a different choice. It's a very practical mental tool disguised as a simple slogan.
There was another detail I loved about that ceremony. The flowers, they were volunteer handing out white carnations to everyone.
And they made a point of saying, no political organization provided these, no super PIC, no nonprofit branding on them. They came from, quote, the spirit of peace.
That purity of the message seems so hard to maintain in a place like D.C., which is usually the noisiest city in the world, figuratively speaking.
It is. And that's why the silence was so powerful. To bring a huge crowd to the Lincoln Memorial and then hold a period of mindful walking and silence, that is a disruption in D.C.
It's a radical act.
Silence in that city is a radical act. It's a statement in itself.
This brings us to the real so what of this whole deep dive, I think. We've watched the movie, we've cried at the dog part, we've nodded along with the philosophy. But does a walk like this actually change anything?
That is the multi-million-dollar question. Does civic healing actually work?
I mean, I can play devil's advocate here for a second. It's a nice story, but did it stop a war? Did it lower the price of gas?
No, and direct causation is always hard, if not impossible, to prove. But the experts at the Network for Religious and Traditional Peacemakers would argue that, yes, it does work, but not in the way a law works. It works by changing the climate in which politics happens.
Okay, explain what you mean by that.
Think of our political and social landscape as a farm. If the soil is toxic, if it's full of anger, distrust, and polarization, you can't grow anything healthy. It doesn't matter how good your seeds, which are the laws and policies are, nothing will grow.
Okay.
Walks like this, public rituals like this, they help to detoxify the soil. They demonstrate that there is a massive, often silent constituency for peace and unity.
It shows the track one people, the politicians, that being peaceful and collaborative is actually popular, that there's a demand for it.
Exactly. It validates the soft power of these religious and community actors. And it's already being used as a case study. We're seeing civic groups like the Omega Network for Action looking at this as a new model for what they call community courage.
And I think the decentralization you mentioned is key here. You said earlier that the initiative didn't just end in D.C.
No, not at all. That was the start of the next phase. It immediately spawned all these micro initiatives. You had people organizing their own small peace walks in their local towns. People all over the country started adopting that daily peace mantra and sharing it online.
So the monks were like the pebble that gets dropped in the pond, and the ripples are all these little walks and moments of intention happening in Wisconsin or Delaware or wherever.
Precisely. And that inclusivity we talked about, the fact that it wasn't strictly Buddhist, meant that those rippers could travel into Christian communities, into secular communities, into every part of the country. It wasn't owned by any one group.
So after the grandeur of D.C., the cathedral, the Lincoln Memorial, the millions of views, they had to go home. The credits have to roll eventually.
The homecoming. Day 112. It's Valentine's Day, February 14, 2026.
They took a bus back from D.C. to Fort Worth, which, by the way, is a very long bus ride after walking for 108 days.
A very long bus ride. But in true form, they didn't just drive into the temple parking lot and call it a day.
No, of course not. They got off the bus at Eastover Park in their neighborhood, and they walked the final mile home. They had to finish on their feet.
And the weather for this final mile?
The weather was poetic. Inevitable, really.
It was pouring rain.
Of course it was. They started in the gray, they walked through ice, they had to end in the rain.
But hundreds and hundreds of people stayed. The Fort Worth report describes the scene so beautifully, just rain pouring down, but people are lining Ramey Avenue. There are rose petals scattered all over the wet pavement.
Traditional lion dances performing in the downpour.
And chants echoing off the houses. It just sounds electric.
And then you get the moment that just lands it all. Bhikkhu Panakara, the leader, the man who has been the face of this for almost 4 months, he meets the temple abbot, the Venerable Radhanaguna.
And he bows.
He bows all the way to the ground. This is a moment of just profound humility.
It is.
You've just been celebrated in the nation's capital. You have 5.8 million followers. You've been hailed as the spiritual hero. But you come home and the first thing you do is bow to your teacher.
And he said, I don't know what I did to deserve this, but I love you all.
That humility is so crucial to the whole thing. If he had come back acting like a rock star, it would have undercut the entire message. But he kept the focus on the community. He made himself small so the message could remain big.
Beautifully put.
And Aloka the dog walked that final mile, too.
He did, reportedly leading the way. A true hero's welcome for the peace dog. I imagine he got a lot of treats that day.
I hope so. He deserves a steak. Or maybe a tofu steak, I guess, since it's a Buddhist temple.
Probably a tofu steak, yeah.
The community voices and the local reporting really ground this whole story for me. You had Lena Luengraj, a local resident, saying, if you don't have peace in your heart, you won't have peace in your world. Just perfectly summarizing the mission.
And then there's my favorite one, Erline Robinson. She's a neighbor. She was just watching the whole scene from her front porch.
Right.
And she told the reporter she didn't know they were internet famous. She had no idea about the millions of followers or the trip to D.C.
She just saw people walking down her street.
She saw people not worried about politics or religion. She just saw human beings caring about other human beings. And she said it made her happy.
that might be the single most important review they got. Not from a bishop or a politician, but just from a neighbor feeling good about her street.
That's the garden you can touch, right there. That's the proof.
So what's next for them? They're back. Do they just go back to meditating and their daily routines?
Well, yes, but on a much bigger scale. The center is expanding. They have this massive new project plan called the Dhammasettiya Project.
The $200 million project, that is huge.
It's enormous. They're planning to build 840 stupas, which are these shrine-like structures, each one engraved with Buddhist scriptures. It sounds like they were building a physical legacy to match the spiritual momentum they just generated.
So they're creating a permanent space where people can come and find that peace themselves instead of them having to walk it to the people.
Exactly. They're building a destination for peace.
It's just amazing to think that this all started in Stop 6 Fort Worth. It went to the very center of American power, and then it circled right back to that same neighborhood.
It's a complete cycle. A mandala, if you will.
So let's try to wrap this up. We've got a 2,300-mile walk, an amputated leg, a famous dog with his own surgery, millions of followers, and a core message of quiet.
It's a beautiful paradox, isn't it? In a world that rewards the loudest voice, the quietest act one.
What's your final takeaway on this when you step back and look at the whole story? What sticks with you?
For me, it's about redefining the meaning of action. We so often think that action means fighting, debating, voting, posting online, yelling. But this entire journey showed that just being present, being peaceful, being persistent is a profound form of action. And it's a form of action that I think people are starving for. It proves that you don't need to shout to be heard. You just need to keep walking.
That's powerful. And here's the thought that I want to leave you, our listeners, with. We are all learners here. We're all trying to figure out how to navigate this incredibly complex world. If a quiet walk can garner more attention and more unity, 5.8 million followers, than almost any shouting match or political campaign we've seen in the last year, what does that say about what you are actually hungry for?
And maybe, just maybe, is the most effective way to change the world, actually, to just slow down.
Today is going to be my peaceful day. Maybe just try saying that tomorrow morning when you wake up. See what happens.
You might just change your commute.
Or at the very least, it might make you look at the shoulder of the road a little differently from now on.
Thanks for diving in with us.
Take care, everyone.